Hey, what's going on, Squares? Jay here, and I have really enjoyed talking about the games that I keep going back to for particular consoles, and there's one that I really want to talk to you about today, and it is the Super Nintendo. No. I'd like to talk to you today about the Super Nintendo. No. Come on, man. I want to talk about the I said no. What? Why? Because, dumbass, you called this the summer of Sega. As your doctor, lawyer, priest, and personal messiah, I'm telling you, you can't talk about, the Super Nintendo? Oh my god, dude. Let it go. Just talk about the Genesis. Talk about the 10 games in the Genesis you're playing right now. Now shut up already. I'm trying to relax here. Okay, yeah, I guess we're talking about the Genesis today, so let's kick things off with one of my all-time favorites. Licensed games on the Genesis were plentiful, and there's a lot of great ones, but this is one of my favorites. This is World of Illusion, starring Mickey and Donald. Now, as a lifelong Disney fan, I don't think we had a better experience with Mickey Mouse-themed games than we did on the Sega Genesis. There were a ton of great ones. That's where the Illusion series started, and one of my favorites from that series is this one here, World of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Now, this one gets the advantage over the other Illusion games because Donald's my guy. Donald is my favorite of the Disney characters, of that kind of core Disney universe between like Mickey, Pluto, Goofy, all them. Donald is top of the list for me. And being able to play as him and Mickey in this game was really great. And continuing the Illusion series is never a bad thing because that whole franchise is fantastic. I mean, it continues to this day with the new Illusion game on the Switch. And this one's just wonderful. It's a very low-key game. It's not overly like rambunctious or kind of twitchy or anything like that. It's just kind of a chill game where you go through the different worlds playing as Mickey and Donald, and you have to get to the end of the level. It's classic platforming action. It's just not so over the top and so aggressive that you're not going to have a good time. I just love it. I think it's a wonderful title. Up next, one of my favorite games from EA, Road Rash 2. Road Rash 2 was one of those forbidden games that I was never allowed to rent as a kid because it was too violent, according to my grandma, and yeah, that never stopped me. I just went to Blockbuster and rented it myself because it was amazing. It was one of my favorite games on the Genesis. It was something that I loved to play, and it was just such a great time and so unusual for the type of games that EA was typically putting out. Like, at the time, EA was heavily into the origin, the starting point of EA Sports with NHL and Madden and NBA and stuff like that. And they also had a lot of sim or RPG games. So Road Rash was kind of a weird anomaly. And then that, of course, led to all kinds of things like the Desert Strike games to Shaq Fu, which was hilarious, but everything stemmed from the Road Rash games. And Road Rash 2 was amazing. It was vehicular combat before vehicular combat was super popular. It was something that led to a fantastic series and led to Skitchin, which was basically just, Road Rash on rollerblades. It's a wonderful game. It's something that still plays great to this day. It's a lot of fun. Running into a moose is always hilarious. It's just a fun game. It holds up. That's the best compliment I can give Road Rash 2 is that it holds up so well. Just picked this up at Southeast Game Exchange. I loved the original in the series, but the sequel, so much better. This is X-Men 2, The Clone Wars. One of my secret shames is that despite the fact that I love both the first X-Men game and this one here, X-Men 2, The Clone Wars, I'm terrible at them. I am just abjectly horrible at playing these games. They are not ones that for some reason click for me as far as picking it up and just being able to sit down, play it, and blow through it. It takes me a while to get into the rhythm of the game, and in this one here, when I was recording this footage, I'm only showing you the Wolverine footage here, but I didn't show you the failure footage of Cyclops and Nightcrawler and Gambit. It was just character after character that I just could not kind of get into the rhythm of, and it just took me a while. But I can't help but love these games because they star characters that I adored. X-Men was my thing at this time when this game released. And to be able to play as some of my favorite characters in a fantastic game that had great animations, decent music, and wonderful combat was just more than I could really ask for. It's a wonderful title. It's the better of the two. I do think this is a stronger game than the first X-Men game on the Genesis, but you can't really go wrong with either of them. I just wanted to play X-Men 2 recently, and here I am. It was a really nice thing to find at Siege, especially for as cheap as I found it. I think I got it for under $10, so definitely something to keep an eye on. If you're starting to collect for the Genesis, this is one to look out for. No matter what, this is one of my all-time favorite games, and this is a game I can go back to at any time on the Genesis because, to me, it's timeless, and the levels change every single time you play. This is ToeJam and Earl. I think the genre I have spoken about the most on my channel is the roguelike, and my adoration of that genre of game stems directly from this one here, ToeJam and Earl. My favorite thing about this game when I was a kid is that it was never the same thing twice. The levels constantly changed. The challenge was always different. It was never the same game repeatedly. I couldn't have muscle memory to beat this game. It was all skill. And that just kind of planted a seed for all kinds of games that I have loved to this day. I think my favorite still, though, is ToeJam and Earl, because not only do you have a brilliant roguelike, you have a brilliant roguelike that is dressed up in the trappings of kind of ridiculousness, right? You play as an alien that has crash landed on Earth. You have to use incredibly silly weapons to fight the crazy humans that are attacking you. You go to these crazy worlds that are constantly shifting, constantly moving, finding pieces of your rocket ship to be able to fly back home to Funkatron. All the while, you have one of the best soundtracks, if not the bit. No, I'll change that. All the while, you have the best soundtrack on the Sega Genesis playing in your ears. It's my favorite game on the Genesis, legitimately. This is my favorite Sega Genesis game, and it is something that no matter where I have the opportunity to play it, if I am ever in a funk, this one brings me out of it. And I mean, seriously, just look how much I love the music from this game based on my reaction of hearing it play at Southeast Game Exchange and the Name That Retro Game Music tune from the panel I was on.
It's definitely a jam, I can tell you that much.
Oh, fantastic soundtrack. One of the first big ticket games that I wanted to track down when I started collecting retro again was this game here, based on one of my favorite animated series. This is The Pirates of Dark Water. I recently did a GBA video, links on the card right now, where I talked about Lady Sia and I compared it to Pirates of Dark Water on the Genesis. And I think this footage can kind of illustrate where I got that impression, because it is kind of similar. There's platforming aspects, you're climbing ladders, it's a hack and slash adventure, and it's fun, which is all you can really ask for in a game like this. The Pirates of Dark Water was one of my favorite animated series, and it's something that I think died a death way too early because Fox just kind of pulled the plug on it and didn't support it. But we got an amazing video game on both the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. I just prefer the Genesis one a little bit more because it was a different experience. And the game is wonderful. It is a platforming hack and slash very similar to Lady Sia. You are playing the different characters from the Dark Water crew. You're fighting the different enemies and going through these amazing levels. The look and sound of this game is spectacular. I actually prefer the Genesis look to the Super Nintendo look, just because it's a little bit grittier, a little bit darker, but it's fantastic. Love this game. One of my favorites on the console. This next one, we actually have to go up to the Mega Man Shrine for. Okay, hold up a second here. I've got to move some stuff so you guys can see this one. Get the Switch games out of the way. Yeah, there we are. This is Mega Man The Wily Wars. Now, this is a reissue. We never did get a physical of this here in the States, but this one is from Retrobit, and it works on regular hardware, so I'm including it because, I mean, come on. It's the first 3 Mega Man games. I can't say no to that. This is the only one that I think might get some question marks because it wasn't an original release here in the States, but seeing as how it is still a Genesis game and it is still playable on original hardware, I want to include Mega Man The Wily Wars just because I love Mega Man. I mean, what other reason would I include it? It's a retelling of the first 3 Mega Man games. You get Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, but they're redone for 16-bit. They play great on the Genesis controller. The music is really good. The visuals are spectacular. It's a really interesting take on classic NES games. They do play slightly differently. They're not one-to-one from the NES to where they are at on the Genesis, but they're still familiar enough that you're not going to be, like, struggling to play the title. You're just going to have to get used to the controller a little bit. I think that's probably the biggest one, is that the controller takes a little bit of getting used to. But it's still fantastic, it's still fun, and it's still wonderful. And this collector set from Retrobit is just magnificent. It's one of the best looking ones that they've done. And it's my favorite personally, but I mean, that shouldn't surprise anybody. Probably the best beat 'em up on the console, on a console that's lousy with them. Like, there are so many amazing beat 'em ups on the console, but I do think this is probably the best one. Has the best soundtrack of ever beat 'em up, I'll say that much. This is Streets of Rage 2. On a system that is full of incredible beat 'em ups, the one that I think stands head and shoulders above all others is Streets of Rage 2. Not only do you have incredibly memorable characters that all play differently, that all interact differently, and all have different attributes, you have brilliant level designs, fantastic combat, wonderful gameplay, and just one of the best soundtracks on the console that is like second only to Toe Jam and Earl as far as fantasticness goes. It's just fun. One of the things that I really love about this is that it took chances based on the first game, but it didn't stray so far from that original design that it felt unfamiliar. It was Streets of Rage just plussed, just made better, and that's really all you can ask for. This game is magnificent. I could talk on this for hours and tell you how much I love it and go into detail about the different things I like about it, from enemy design to combat mechanics to special maneuvers, but I won't waste your time on that one. I'll just tell you that Streets of Rage 2 is brilliant. You should play it. Here's a series I wish we'd see come back. We just haven't seen one in ages, and that's really unfortunate because this is one of EA's stronger IPs. This is Desert Strike: Return to the Gulf. Now, I don't typically get into stuff that's kind of military focused. It's not really my thing. But the Strike games on the Genesis were kind of the exception to that rule. And Desert Strike, I think, is probably my favorite. As good as Jungle Strike and Urban Strike are, I do think Desert Strike is my favorite. These are helicopter combat games where you are given a series of missions and an expansive map that you need to fly your helicopter around and take out enemies, collect supply caches, make sure you're not running out of fuel, and just really, it's fun. It's a very straightforward and simple game that requires a lot of thought and a lot of strategy to how you're going to go about manipulating the map and maneuvering around the map to make sure that you aren't running out of fuel or getting blown up or losing a life. It's just a clever game. This is a series I really like, and this is something that when I look at it and I think about how kind of intriguing of a game it is, I'm shocked that we didn't see this kind of just continue and carry forth from EA, because, I mean, they're not opposed to making money. And, I mean, if I'm looking at it from a modern perspective, you could monetize the hell out of this game with all kinds of DLC, but, I mean, maybe I shouldn't put that out there in the universe. Still, I would love to see the Strike series come back, whether it's released on the Switch Online service or just kind of as a collection. I think there's something there, and I miss the series. It'd be fun to have again. All right, this one I need to show off just because this is such an absolutely fantastic rental case here. So this, as you can see, this is from Family Video. This was picked up for me recently here by Game Dad. He went to a kind of a game swap meet and greet at one of the local barcades, and they had a copy of The Adventures of Batman and Robin. And this is just so neat that it's got all this awesome stuff on it. Like, the case isn't in the best of shape, but it's super cool. And you guys know how much I truly do love rental stickers and stuff. So to get like the barcode and everything on here from Family Video, it's just awesome. Love, love, love The Adventures of Batman and Robin. One of the things I really miss about the 16-bit generation is that you could get two games of the exact same name on two different consoles and have a completely different gameplay experience. The Adventures of Batman and Robin on the Super Nintendo is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and this one here is a side-scrolling run-and-gun shooter, kind of like Metal Slug. It's just kind of amazing. It's ridiculous. It's fun. It's fast. It's hard as hell. It is such a difficult game. I've never beaten this one. I have loved it for years, and I've never beaten it because it is so hard. It's something where you really need to focus in, really figure out your plots, a lot of muscle memory. It's almost like a bullet hell now that I'm kind of thinking about it, because there's so much action happening on the screen at once. But it's wonderful. The Adventures of Batman and Robin on the Genesis is amazing. I can definitely see why people would prefer the Super Nintendo one to the Genesis release. I think personally I probably do as well, but this is such an interesting take for the character that I can't help but love it. It's different than anything else I've ever played starring the character, and that's kind of cool. This is such a fantastic game and such a wonderful entry in the Sonic series. This is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 can be viewed as an incomplete game. It absolutely can be. Same thing with Sonic and Knuckles. They were meant to be put together. They were meant to be a Reese's cup of peanut butter and chocolate, two great tastes that taste great together. And what we got instead were two distinct releases of what essentially were unfinished games. Now, I love Sonic 3, don't get me wrong. I do think it's fantastic. I think it's a wonderful title and a great addition to the Sonic franchise, but it does feel a little bit lacking. It does feel like kind of half a game, and that's really because it is. But that doesn't stop me from playing it and doesn't stop me from enjoying it. And I can play it either with Sonic and Knuckles connected, or I can go vanilla and just play Sonic 3. I really do think it is one of those games that kind of fell into its success. The soundtrack obviously is incredible. I mean, there's, Michael Jackson producing your music. That's going to go pretty well. The gameplay is great. They touched up the graphics just enough to give it a little bit of a distinct visual appearance from the original Sonic and Sonic 2. But they didn't touch the gameplay so much that it felt unfamiliar or unfun. I really like the ability to jump again or press the jump button again when you're in air to kind of have an extra attack bonus, which is really nice. The new power-ups are really clever. It's just a quality game. I really love this one. Like I said, it is kind of half a game if you don't include Sonic and Knuckles, but you can still have a good time with Sonic 3. So there you have it, my friends. 10 games on the Sega Genesis that I've just been having an absolute blast with lately. 10 games during the summer of Sega that my other self that is still relaxing out on the couch and enjoying that glass of champagne wanted me to talk to you about. Let me know in the comments down below, what are your favorite Sega Genesis games? Which ones do you keep going back to? Which ones are the ones that mean the most to you? I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.